When you're seeking to understand, you will become exponentially more interesting to people.
Hello, beautiful people, leaders, and trailblazers. It's Michele Phillips with another episode of Write Your Outcome. Today, I am talking to Christine Miles, who is an expert on listening. Hello, Christine.
Hey there, Michele. How are you?
I'm so excited to talk about this topic, which we all need more of. As I start all my podcasts, I'm going to read a little bit about Christine, so I give her the proper credit, and then we're going to launch into the discussion. Christine Miles is on a mission to start a listening movement and to build a world where we can all better relate to each other, communicate with each other, and solve complex problems. With 25 years in the field of emotional intelligence, psychology, and education, she has watched over and over again how a failure to listen has negatively impacted relationships, organizations, schools, and individuals. And she knows it doesn't have to be that way. It's why Christine speaks to audiences across the globe and equips them with the understanding they need to listen and to listen differently. She's an award-winning author. Her book, What Is It Costing You Not to Listen? The Power of Understanding to Connect, Influence, Solve, and Sell. Whew, this is such a hot, fabulous topic. So let's get in. Hello, Christine.
Well, thank you for the nice introduction. I really appreciate that. That's your own words, I think. So very nice. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I always want people to, there's a saying, there's no bad podcast guests, only bad interviewers. So I always want to bring my best self.
Interesting. We'll see. I'm not sure I agree with that, but that's okay.
To the interview. So, I've been doing sales training, customer service training, communication trainings my whole life. And we used to stand in front of a room and say, how many people here have taken a presentation skills class?
Mm-hmm.
How many people here have taken a business writing class?
Mm-hmm.
How many people here have taken a listening class?
Wow, that's great.
Cricket.
You asked those questions. Yeah, crickets. So 2% of people worldwide. 2% of people worldwide. That's it.
Amazing.
And just as a true confession moment, let's have that. I've had no formal listening training myself, and I have a master's in psychology. got a certificate in structural family therapy from the University of Pennsylvania Hospital when it was a world premier institution. I was trained by second generation therapist of Salvador Minuchin, who created at a very young age 0 years of listening training.
So with no listening training.
Yeah, that builds confidence, doesn't it?
No, but this is beautiful because life is it's Earth School.
Yeah, Earth School.
We all know when we're not being listened to. And this is called Write Your Outcome. When did you decide that you were going to start a listening movement, that you were going to write this new outcome? Like, what inspired you?
So it's really been quite an evolution, and I've always been working in the field of communications and emotional intelligence. I always have one lane. You don't want me to be, you don't want me to be the mechanical engineer on the bridge. That's all I can tell you. But because, this skill started very young for me, and I've shared this story many times, but for those who don't know me, I grew up in a family where my mother had mental illness, depression, anxiety, among other things. Stemming early in her life, she lost her mother. Her mother died from childbirth, essentially. So she was set up for a lot of pain. And what I was tasked with in the family is to understand the pain that most people didn't see. Because my mother was motherless and I was the girl, Freud could get involved here. We could talk for a long time. So, certainly burden in that, and an incredible gift, because both through having to understand what most people see, because my mother's pain was not on the surface, as most people's aren't, whether you suffer from mental health issues or not. We're all carrying something below the surface, and it's the invisible stuff that really impacts us. And I saw the pattern when my mother, she would try to express it, and my mother was beautiful and warm and funny, lit up the room. So people had a hard time reconciling the outside appearance with what was underneath, and they rush in to try to convince her life was really good now, and they didn't say suck it up, but they might as well have, in their efforts to make her feel better. So I learned early the costs of not listening, and then I started overachieving relative to some very average abilities, very average, both athletically and academically, because I had learned this skill really young. And then that's kind of how I started my path in my career. And over the last 5 to 10 years is when I've really crystallized and created a system that's scalable, which is not, there's no scalable listening education. That's the problem. It's not that's why we haven't solved the problem. There's been a gap. And I just figured out a way to solve that gap.
So you said so many good things. We have so many parallels in our life, but I won't even get into my story.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
There's
okay.
a lot of because my dad lost his dad, and then
wow.
Low self-esteem, which is how I got into what I'm doing. At 4 years old, he lost his dad. So, like father, like daughter, you want to do it better. So I recognized that in you and the scalability. And when you were talking, you reminded me, I did have a client years ago, Stryker, and I saw them on your list too.
Yeah.
Adam Chandler, if you're listening, asked me, can I do a listening course? And we did a 2-hour, but again, there's nothing. I mean, this is so many years ago. There's nothing out there. I pulled something together. So where did you resource this? How did you what were your first steps? This is fascinating.
So the first step was to basically for years work with clients from the time first of all, I started my career as a family therapist, as I mentioned in my educational background. So I'm 22 years old, knocking on people's doors. We talked before we started in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. That's where I cut my teeth as a family therapist. I at one time had the mayor of Lancaster County at 22 on my caseload, which was ridiculous.
Wow.
But the reason I got the job and overachieved was because I had this skill. I mean, I was a successful athlete, so that always got you something on the resume. But once I showed up, it's not because of what I knew. It's because of how I understood. That's how I built my, this is how I was getting recognized and what I was doing really well. And then I started working for an EAP, an employee assistance program, and was started as a counselor. And within 6 months was doing the organizational development and program management of that organization. So I was with 100 organizations plus, QVC to hospitals to schools. And over and over again, the communication stuff was always what we were focused on. But the breakdowns were around what people didn't understand, not what people said. And then I started my own consulting practice, and that was I was making good money going, this is the same problem over and over and over and over and over again. People they misunderstand each other. And then I'm like, this is broken. We don't have a systemic fix for the systemic problem, which is if we're working on our leg muscles, we're only working on the quad, not the hamstring. You need both to really for the leg to work well. And you said, there's only bad guests, there's no bad guests, just bad interviewers. I'm going to say the reason I rebuff that a little bit is that people are terrible storytellers. They're terrible talkers. And therefore we need someone to really be the guide in the conversation. And that's what the listener is supposed to do, which is why the podcast host does need to be really good. But we're bad at both. No, even with all the speaking training, people suck at talking.
Oh my God, you're making so many good points here. So first of all, the listening part, kudos to you for saying this is it, because I've been doing this for years, but it never even occurred to me to just focus on listening all by itself.
Yeah.
What was Stephen Covey's, seek to be understood. I forget how it even goes. So kudos to you there. Then I did watch some of your videos, and I like that you said it's your job. I forget how you put it. It's almost like your job to understand the person's point of view and put the pieces together. So to me, when you're talking about storytelling, people are giving you pieces. Like I was, and as a coach,
absolutely.
As a coach, I always say at the 9th hour of a call, someone drops a bomb on you.
Yeah.
Right. They're with you the whole therapy session, the whole coaching session. At the very end, they let something out, but there's more to the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you teach people to pick up on that?
Well, let me slow down so I can speed us up, because the way I put it, which you eloquently said, is that the job of the listener is to be in charge, not the speaker. And that's what's wrong with the paradigm to begin with. If we were all interviewing for a podcast, we'd do a lot better, because we know it's our job to be in charge. It's your job today to organize me. I think I'm pretty good at organizing and following, but most people aren't. They're just dropping everything at you, and you got to slow them down or speed them up. So that's how we should really be approaching the conversations in general, because people who are speaking aren't organized either. And it's really in 2010, 11 when storytelling came hot on remember the landscape? Everybody and their mother wanted storytelling training. It's still the most powerful way to communicate. But I'm like, how do you know what story to tell if you don't know what story the person's telling themselves or what the real problem is? And that's when I really started to decode this, because story is the heart of both listening and telling. You got to get a story or you got to tell a story. They're the same skill inside out, basically.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, so if I'm listening to your actual story and I'm paying attention, it's my job. I love what you said. It's my job to be in charge of it
And organize,
right? And when listening to what you say and then filling in the gaps, because you might not be like you said with your mom, there's things underneath that you're not seeing, but there's always those little clues.
Yeah, I was doing a speaking engagement last week for an HR convention, and I just happened to sit down with some people, and we were at lunch before I was speaking in the afternoon. There's like 5 of us at the table, and this one woman, delightful, is talking about her love of scuba diving, and she's talking about this. And another woman who she doesn't scuba dive the woman who scuba dives said something like, "I want to do the Half Moon Bay dive," which I'd never heard of. And this woman goes, "I think it's like 600 grand to do that." And then everybody just kept talking. And I went, wait, how do you know that? Like, you didn't Google anything, She goes, "I just have a morbid interest in what happens to scuba divers when they, how they," and I was investigating, and everybody kept talking, and I went, hold on.
Yeah,
tell me more.
Listening.
Yeah, tell me more. Like, that's random. We're just having, well, it turns out her stepmother died in a scuba dive accident, but she didn't put any flares out that said I had a problem. It was just these subtle, I was listening to the words, and I was also going, it didn't add up that she had all this information, and it's something she'd never done. So I just knew to slow her down. But I also know that I'm always listening to a story, no matter what. If somebody says one word, one sentence, good, how's your project going? Well, that is a story. And so she says 600 grand for that Half Moon Bay dive. I know she just dropped me in the middle of the story.
Yeah.
And I need
God, these are so good. So
yeah.
Be in charge as the listener. Every word is a story. Now, I'm a talker, and my first husband, we were scuba divers. We were both talkers.
Oh, that's interesting.
But I was Michele in concert in my early days. I could, talk about me? And then when we're done talking about me, you talk about me. And I was horrible. So my first husband and I created a game. I said, let's go to dinner and let's see how long we can get the other people talking.
Okay.
Because if we didn't ask questions or we weren't curious, we could just monopolize the whole night.
Welcome to meetings. I appreciate your self-awareness, but that's every meeting in corporate America, isn't it?
So tell people where to start. So if someone wants to get better, I'm in control, and every word is a story. So, break it down a little bit.
So let me take you back to so I created my own listening framework, and it's called the listening path. So most people, when they think of listening and the gold standard and what's known, is active listening.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we mean by active listening? At the heart of active listening, which, by the way, was developed in 1957, so it's a very old model, that, like, imagine driving a 1957 car down the highway and feeling safe. It's not now it was also designed by a psychologist, a couple of them, Carl Rogers being one, for psychologists. So it's not for the average person.
Interesting.
Right? I know, a little historical background. But here's the thing, totally the right intention. Find the meaning, understand the person's feelings, get to the underneath part. However, it's very behaviorally focused. So it's reduced to very performative things for the average person because they haven't been taught how to do it. Ask questions, make eye contact, empathize. There's actually 11 things you're supposed to do to actively listen. 11, only 11. Most people can't do one because the brain's the greatest enemy of listening. So instead of behaviors, the listening path gives you the tools. Okay. And the metaphor, I basically wrote a story to start. Uh, and the story is you wouldn't go hiking in the woods without tools or supplies in your backpack. Yet we go into the conversational woods all the time, and that's why we're lost, confused, and don't understand or misunderstand. So the tools we give you do the work for you so that you find the meaning finds you. So that's the story of the path. So one of the things you need to know is that when you're listening, you're always listening to a story. Well, you need a map to the story. So that's tool number one. What's on the map? Great storytellers, movies, books, TV shows all follow the same basic arc, 3-part act, 4-part journey, the hero's journey, whatever. So once you know where you are on the map, it's really easy not to get lost. It's just like when you're out in the woods. If you have the trail markers, you know to go left or right or whatever. So that's the first tool you need, the story map. And on that map, there's the 4 stops to the story and facts and feelings, because you need to get both to get a cohesive narrative. So I'll stop there.
So, okay, so the map, and I'm just trying to follow all this.
Yeah.
I love it. So the map is the facts and the feelings. And once I know the fact of where the person is and how they're feeling, then I know where I am in the woods, so to speak.
That's the main path to the story. The map gives you the main path. So that's tool 1 with the facts and feelings. So I like people to equate this to watching a movie, because that's pretty much what you're doing when you're listening. You're in a movie, and you just have to be the director that gets the storyteller to tell it to you in a cohesive way. So the problem that we face with listening, and a lot in business, is frankly in personal life as well, because we're not socialized. We need to get both facts and feelings. A story is not cohesive without both. I liken it to if your 5-year-old comes in and says nothing about what happened but is only crying, you're confused. If somebody's only talking about facts, like say you're in a meeting, well, there's no narrative to how it affects the customer or the employees or the market. Well, you're also confused and you're also bored. So you need both to get the story. And then the second tool is those 4 stops: beginning, a struggle, a tipping point, and what we call a new beginning versus an ending.
Hello, I am interrupting this podcast to give a plug for my brand new book, Energize Your Happiness. I am so proud of this book, and I can't wait for you to read it or listen to it, because it will be on audio as well. And I just want you to know you don't have to push so hard. You don't have to be so stressed. You have all this beautiful energy inside you. And when you learn to manage the energy, when you learn to focus your energy, everything starts to fall into place. So energize your happiness, tap into your personal energy, and shape your destiny comes directly from my heart to your heart. It's available on lulu.com. It's available on amazon.com. And if you'd like a personally signed copy, go to energizeyourhappiness.com, and I will personally sign and autograph a copy and ship it out to you. So Energize Your Happiness is available right now. It makes a great gift for the holidays. And if you're hearing this after the holidays, it makes a great gift for Valentine's Day, New Year's, you name it. It makes a great gift. Make it a great day. Back to the podcast. So the question is, like that conversation you were in when the woman was talking about scuba diving, and then this woman said Half Moon Bay, $600, and then the other women just went on talking.
Yeah.
Do people care? So that's where my thing.
They were fascinated once I got it. I just knew I didn't have the beginning.
No, but I'm saying the other women, it just goes over their head and they just start talking about what they want.
Well, there was it wasn't just women, by the way, it was men too.
Okay.
But it was a very nice dialogue. She was just dropping these parts of the story that I knew weren't the full story. So I just went after it. I'm like, there's more to this, because you don't know this fun fact. Now, I didn't necessarily know that she had a tragedy in her family that was led to this, but confusion leads me to want to find out more, or if I'm really certain, I'm going to go back. These are 2 clues to listen differently. If I'm like, how many times does somebody say something to you and you're like, there's a little moment of confusion. Every leader who's listening to this probably happens 100 times a day. We just don't know to go after it or how to go after it. I'm just used to cueing to that, because I've been doing it since I was young, and now I have a system that I can even put language around it for people. So Once we did the afternoon session, people were like, ah, I get it now, because they saw the tools in motion
And I
versus
think what I was understanding and is when sometimes when people are talking and like they say those things that trigger confusion or something, people just change the subject and they don't even
correct.
they never even dig any deeper
That's
and it
right.
gets
It
lost.
gets lost and we miss so many things. So we connected very differently by virtue of what she shared as a whole table because she got
Yeah.
vulnerable. She opened up. We learned more about what happened, why that was of interest to her. She gave us plenty of clues, by the way. I mean, she said a lot of things but we're not used to trailing those clues. And listening is about being that curious detective that lets that story unfold so that we can learn more. Now, don't do this on an airplane because somebody will talk to you. So, or on a first date. I learned that when I was in the dating world. Got a lot of second dates,
Yeah.
by the way, because I listened so I'm fabulous. Not as fabulous as I thought. When I talked more, I got less dates. Yeah,
Well,
less.
that's where the emotional intelligence comes in, knowing when to stop, when to talk.
Yeah,
But you said two words that I want to go back to. It was I think you said curiosity and
certainty.
certainty.
Confusion and certainty are
So how does
two.
certainty
Yeah.
help you?
Well, if you feel certain you got it all, you probably didn't. Like, let's take this
Ah,
to a sales call. So, so one of the greatest listening inhibitors is knowledge and experience. So the more we know, the more we think we know. This is also, I'll put this in relation to parents. So salesperson, parent. Parents have already gone through a lot of what their kids have gone through. So they start to advise, problem solve, tell them what to do because they know what they're facing, right? Kids are like, I don't want to hear it because you don't know me, mom and dad, you're old, right? But
yeah.
we do know because we've seen the movie before. Now let's go with the salesperson. Well, my dad used to say, he was an entrepreneur. He used to say, you pretty much see the same problem over and over again, but the client needs it to feel like a Broadway show. It's
Yeah.
so, but because we know the problem and how to solve it, we also rush to solutions. So knowledge and experience rushes us forward. So when we think we got the understanding, that's probably a good idea to go, let me make sure. Maybe I need to
Love
go
it. So
back.
then if you think you have the understanding, what's the next step? To double check or
To go back to still ask for more. There's
okay.
and then that takes us to the third tool, which is really the compass, which are the six most powerful questions you need in any conversation to get the whole story.
You gonna share some? Well,
I'll tell you them all if you like.
yeah,
Okay,
let's do it.
so I'll go through them quickly and then we can talk to them. Take me back to the beginning. Then what happened? How did that make you feel? Tell me more. Because when you're listening, you're imperceptibly almost saying that, and it sounds like you felt, and then you fill in the blank. For fact, to feeling, you're guaranteed to get the story every time if you only use those questions.
Love them. Repeat them one more time. They're so
Sure.
good.
Take me back to the beginning, which is essentially what I said to the woman. I said, take me back. That does,
Yeah.
you didn't Google that, and so she went right back to the beginning. That's what happened. Take me back to the beginning. Then what happened? It sounds, how did that make you feel? Hmm. Tell me
Tell me
more.
more.
And it sounds like you felt, and fill in the blank. So
Validating.
yeah, pretty much is. And by the way, people worry that they're going to get the feeling wrong. Doesn't matter because people just correct you, which is a beautiful thing. I'm not angry. I'm furious. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
But as you probably know from Brene Brown's research, most people have three emotions they can articulate. When we expand their emotional language for them by naming a feeling, it changes the conversation.
I love it. And there's something I always say, the shaman saying that when you name it to tame it.
Yeah.
When I can name the emotion, I'm able to tame it and handle it.
Yeah.
So I love all these and I love, tell me more. These are things, I was brought up in sales training also.
Yeah.
But they really helped me again because I had to really learn to listen.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm better at it than others. Sometimes when I get really excited around certain topics, I can't stop talking
Yeah.
because my emotions and I just want to get it out. So what advice would you have for me when I just get so excited and I keep interrupting people, that kind of thing?
Well, the tools help you relax the brain. Like I said, the brain is our greatest enemy of listening. You said earlier, I thought of a story that reminds me of my own story, my father, and my father lost his father, and you started to relate and you resisted, right? Because you told me a little bit, but some people just jump in and derail the conversation. We rehearse. A lot of people aren't good in the moment. They're processors, so they're practicing. They're distracted. There's many listening inhibitors. When we try to just white knuckle it, like I'm going to look at you, I'm going to give you thoughtful attention, I'm going to do all these things, we're not really able to control the brain, the
Mm.
subconscious brain. So the tool, it's just like I wouldn't probably be good at building a house anyway, but I could hammer something if I had a hammer. So when you have the right tool, it does the work for you. Yeah. So the
Like,
compass helps guide, knowing where you are on the map, and you're not as confused and lost. That helps you stay present because you're not like, what is this person talking about? Like you guide them to you're on the path. So all these things help calm the brain down.
I think it's interesting what you said when people don't, and you tell me what you know from your expertise. Sometimes when people don't understand what people are saying, they're embarrassed to even say they don't understand. So they just kind of shake their head and they go, yeah, whatever. And they're missing something.
A
So
lot.
what advice would you give to those people?
Look, I when you're seeking to understand, you will become exponentially more interesting to people.
Hmm.
So confusion is your friend. We're not supposed to know. There are, so that's the vulnerability part of that. But really, it's a gift. You're giving the other person a gift by using that confusion to tell me more rather than just
Yeah.
shut the conversation down. So again, you don't always want to know more, but there's most situations like your kid's talking to you, your spouse is talking to you, your customers talking to your employee. I mean, the disengagement rate in corporate America is terrible. And most people don't feel like their voices matter at work. This is why. This is why. Because we're more dispersed than ever and more physically disconnected. Technology's connecting and disconnecting us, and we're terrible at this. And so we have a world that's even more disconnected with technology, and we're already bad at it. So it's a recipe for failure in our relationships and in our workplaces.
And you bring us back to society. And something you said in one of your videos, I want to make sure we have time for this. It's, first of all, these skills are amazing. And I love that they're just these, like, for me, they're like these mental tweaks and flips
Yeah.
in my brain. They're the tools
Yeah.
that help me see it a different way. So I can, like, I wouldn't use a screwdriver if I was trying to hammer something.
Absolutely. Yep.
So now I have the right tool. We talk about this, this us versus them, all these contentiousness going on in our society.
Yeah.
I really, my second book is coming out next month, and I write in the forward in the beginning that when we started spreading apart, I faced a decision. Did I want to just be with people that thought like me and believe
Yeah.
like me, or did I want to open my mind and heart to people that didn't
Yeah.
think like me? So I really took it as an exercise in tell me why you think that and explain
Hmm.
why why your views are this.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean I liked it,
Yeah.
but how do you teach that to someone to be able to see both sides of an equation, even when you don't agree?
I I think we are woefully focused on agreement rather than understanding.
Mm,
And because of the way we're fed information, it's really easy to surround ourselves with people that, even if we don't know them, that agree with us. And that's more comfortable. That's just more comfortable. So it's human. We sort our bias, our brains sort from what's familiar. So we gravitate towards what's familiar. I'm not a political expert. I am not a political historian, but I know enough to know that how we got to the best places and how we get to innovation in corporate America is through divergent ideas and voices coming together to with different ideas and not to agree. The best ideas do not come out of agreement and everybody having the same thoughts and processes. So that discourse is such an important part of how we get things done well and we have balance and check. So that's what's missing. What frustrates me, and it's so easy to do because we're inundated, is to take even the news flash, whether that's on social media or on a major, as the headline is the story. The headline is to get your attention. Just like that woman said, 650 million for Half Moon Bay. That's a headline, but that's not, by the way, she wasn't right. She was wrong. Like whatever
Yeah.
the cost was, she had a
Yeah.
guess. But that's what we're doing. And we're not even really getting if we're agreeing. We're just going, oh, that must be right because I believe that. So I'm getting
Mm.
on my soapbox a little bit here. I don't mean to
No,
do
but I
that.
want to back up. I want to bring us to the beginning. I'm going to use
Okay.
my tools. I want to bring you back to, I'm taking notes here because it's so good. We are too focused on agreement versus understanding.
Yeah,
Just hit me so hard. And you get better results from understanding versus agreement. So I really just wanted to hit that again
I
because that's
appreciate
so
that.
powerful,
Yeah.
for people to start to realize that it doesn't, I don't want to say it's not to be your way or the highway. There's so many different roads to get where you're going if you seek to understand.
That's the first step in getting to finding different ways to innovate, solve the problem. And even if you don't agree, so one of the things I've developed two things. I wrote the book that you mentioned. I created the listening path, and then I created a board game so that when we work with our clients, they could put listening in their hands, essentially, like touch it, feel it, see it. Because I've been selling air for most of my career. Like,
Yes,
listening,
me
what is
too.
that? Like where is that? And that helps people learn really, really well because they see it, feel it, touch it, and the tools are part of the game. So
So tell us about the game. It's an actual listening game.
it's called Mastering the Listening Path. Here it is, right here. This is an empty box, but there's 9 rounds inside this game. So it's every
I
facet of
love it.
communication, from pivoting from listener to teller to the foundational process to how to interrupt, you name it, negotiate, problem solve. It's very robust. So but you need the foundational process first, which is what we just sort of talked about. But one of the things in the foundational process is you have to learn these 5 tools, and when you use these 5 tools to get the story, then everybody has to figure out what the insight or meaning of the story. And there's park rangers because we monitor for safety. You learn to listen as a team. So we were out with a team at Keck Medical about a year ago. And what was so interesting is when people have a common way to understand, when they went to figure out what the meaning was or what the insight was, 95 to 99% of the answers are almost exactly the same. And when does that ever happen? When does anybody come out of a conversation with a common understanding, right? And so one of the people said, now the real conversation can begin because we're not confused about what happened. Now we can actually have the real discussion. And that's the point, is that we're not talking past each other, or we're not thinking we understand and then solving a different problem because we understand a different thing. There's a way to get a common understanding.
I've got so many goose or thrill bumps, whatever you want to call them, because you're just giving so many golden nuggets. I wish I wrote them all down. But tell me some success stories in your life or your client's life of how this has changed things for them.
Well, for me personally, my success started to show up pretty young because I'm dyslexic. I learned much later in my adult life. So I had challenges. I did okay in school, but, actually I did really well at dodging what I wasn't good at. This is probably
Me
what I
too.
did really well. Like, I didn't take algebra past the ninth grade. I didn't take math past the ninth grade, if that's
Oh my God, I took algebra in college because it was the easiest math I could take to get my degree. So we have so much in common.
Well, the algebra was like, I was done, but I got a master's from an Ivy League school. So there you go. So
Yeah.
on the sports field, I definitely wasn't the strongest, but because I could read the game and I had these other skills and listen differently, that helped me. I mean, I became a very successful athlete. So all these things, for me, it's the superpower that's at the center of anything that I've been successful in. So, and again, that's why what I saw how people failed. In terms of success stories, they range from somebody saying, clients saying that I had a conversation with my 16-year-old daughter and I got the first unsolicited hug in 3 years.
Mm.
And story after story after story about impactful conversation from like just one entree into learning these tools. From that to, solving cultural issues where people are siloed and not able to build credibility or get to the real problem to sales results. So just think about all the ways that there's so many miscommunications. And when you create a common language, what happens and what changes as a result of that. So, we work with clients from small HVAC companies to SAP, where we've worked with the sales teams and so forth. Yeah.
I want everyone listening to think about your relationships, your most important relationships. And, if you had to rate them, I always say from 1 to 10, and how much have you listened to that person, versus how much have you talked at them or to them, and, how to be, where you can use improvement.
Yeah.
I was with a group of people recently, and there was a fabulous storyteller in the group. But the story was this one led to this one, led to this one, led to that one. And this voice in a group of, 8 people was the only voice going for a good 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And it gets tired because we all want to contribute also.
Well, we also want to be asked about.
Yeah.
So some people are happier to sit back and not be as verbal or tell them, but we we want to be known. That's really what's missing, is that did anybody try to know me in that conversation versus just entertain me? How many times have you been on a call and it's like you asked all these questions and you're interested in, and then there's nothing in return? It's very one-dimensional, one-sided. So even an introvert that likes to be in the background and doesn't like to be the center of attention still wants to be known in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, and again, this is probably part of what happens in meetings, is that some people are quieter and some people are more dominant. And, I had a situation one time, we went to do something for a team. Day one, had the day. We actually weren't doing listening yet. So that was day two. I said, because somebody new came in that wasn't able to be there Monday. And I said, take her back, tell her what we did yesterday. 45 minutes later, we had alignment on what actually happened and got the story. If I had just started the meeting, this is how meetings go. We think we understand. We drop right in as if we left off where we left off without any real clear understanding or alignment. And we wonder why we don't get anything done in meetings.
So these things take time. So I would assume, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, that you have to, pick and choose when you really want to invest this time. Like for this meeting thing, it was very important to get everybody on the same page before you go forward. But is there times where it's not important, or am I just imagining that?
Well, so here's what listening is: an efficiency skill. It's efficiency as well as proficiency. So I'm highly impatient. A husband or wife or spouse that comes home to talk to their partner often is like, I don't have it in me to listen to 9 hours of this. I had one guy say that to me one time. It took my wife 9 hours to tell me about her 9-hour day. And I was like, you didn't make it. He goes, we're not married anymore. So it seems like, well, first of all, it shouldn't take 45 minutes. If everybody has a common language of how to get to understanding, you can do it like that. You just got to give them the tools. The problem is that's not what's happening. So we don't see it. It's an invisible wound. And then we just add on to it. So we actually waste an inordinate amount of time and resource and productivity solving the wrong problems because we didn't really make sure that we had understanding.
So efficiency and proficiency, I loved.
Yep.
Everybody wants to be known.
Yep.
Which my husband is British and he's an introvert. And I've seen so many times people say, they ask him a question, and when he doesn't answer right away, they answer 2 or 3, and they don't listen. They don't pause for his response.
Yeah.
So really, oh my God, there's so many good things here. So I want to wrap us up. And in my first book, I always talk about was happiness is a habit.
Yeah.
The habits of happy, productive, healthy people. So in your life, in your personal life, professional life, when the carpet gets pulled out from under you, or you have a bad day, what are some of the habits that you go to help you get back on track, or rituals?
Well, I actually had a pretty life-altering accident when I was 28. So I had 3 years of chronic pain that went acute when I was 31. I had 3 major spinal surgeries. So I had to reinvent myself. I was a high-level athlete at that time, and then I couldn't pull up my shorts. So it was a big deal. A couple of people were like, how did you get depressed? And I said, well, based on my lineage, I should be in a fetal position, that alone. But I just got up every day, took a shower, even if the next thing I had to do was lay back down, is that routine is very important, I think, and making sure that even on your worst day, you follow a routine
Yes.
is just critical. And it's hard. It was hard some days, but it would have been easy to stay in my pajamas. I had every right to do it,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't have served me well. Yeah, so that's one of the things. And then just you gotta look at stuff. You gotta appreciate what's in your. One time I was on a golf course with a client, and I said, "Hold on, look at the sun was coming in across the fairway." And I said, if we were on vacation, we would appreciate this so much more because we wouldn't have seen it before. We've been on this hole many times, and let's just stop. But that's kind of a metaphor for every conversation with a loved one. We've seen it before, so we're not as curious about it. Yeah.
But that's what, I always say things are cliche because they're ancient wisdom, because there's so much juice in these things. So, okay, your accident is probably a story for another podcast.
Yeah.
We'll talk later. But, I'm a big believer. Jill Bolte Taylor, her Stroke of Insight, the book. Same thing. Every day you have your pity party for 10 minutes and then you do what you have to do. And I like what you said, even if the next thing is after a shower is to lay down.
And I am fortunate that I am not predisposed. I should be predisposed, but for some reason, depression, anxiety are not something that I'm riddled with. So that helped if I had that on top of the physical. So I don't want to minimize it for people because I can't imagine what it's like to have to overcome those two obstacles as well. But the same things work. Yeah.
And I think I like to tell people it's a combination, right? Yeah. There's the medical community for certain things, but there's so much that you could do between your own two ears and with your brain and with your resilience. You always have more power than you think.
Well, especially knowing what we know now about neuroscience and how the brain's flexible, but it's like anything. So I've made listening really simple. That doesn't mean it's easy. Because the simple part is, can you do this repeatably? And yes, very quickly. I had a client say, this works every time I remember to do it. And I said, well, you have a lot of years of habit that you've been doing it the other way. And so don't expect a habit to be created. That's where the hours come in. The good news is you can inordinate amount of conversations to practice this. And now that the tools are more tangible, it's easier. But that's what's hard about good habits is just making sure that you practice them until the brain integrates them, right?
Yeah. Oh, repetition is queen or king. And, you just gave me so many little hacks or ways to flip things that help me listen differently. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Tell people where they can find you, the name of your book, and how they can connect with you.
So thelisteningpath.com is our website. Christine Miles Listens is my speaker's website if people want that. The book is What Does It Cost You Not to Listen? You can find that on the major outlets. We have a classroom program from elementary programs now I animated myself. I basically wrote a movie so that I could be the on-screen guide, and then the teacher puts all the language in the classroom for the kids. We launched in last spring, and it's been very, very good so far. And we have a licensable program for organizations coming out as well, in addition to the workshops we do for organizations.
You're a powerhouse. And
thank you.
Let's think what it would be like if we were, taught listening skills in second grade or first grade.
Well, that's what's happening now. My mission is to globalize listening education, and we're in Ireland, Canada, and the U.S. So hopefully this will, we just launched, but that's what my fervent desire is. Would you want to learn to ski at 5 or 45? Let's get them on the slopes at 5.
Oh my gosh, you are so inspiring. You are a woman on a mission, and you have inspired me. I know everyone listening is inspired, and it's done. I see you. You've done it already.
Thank you.
It's all coming together. So thank you for being here. Thank you everyone for listening to this week's episode of Write Your Outcome. Make sure to go look up Christine, get the book, get on her class, whatever, she has a lot of resources, and make sure you make use of them and write your outcome and make it a great day. That's a wrap for today's episode of Write Your Outcome with me, Michele Phillips. If something sparked in you and you enjoyed this podcast, please don't forget to rate, review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Let's keep these ripples going and make it a